I was, when I was invited, I was a little surprised. I was pretty honored and that I'd get to come and talk to you guys. And I started thinking about what Scotty had asked us to talk about, which was sort of life lessons and that type of thing. And I thought the last thing you'd want to hear is some guy standing up here telling war stories and talking about himself. And probably even worse than that would be sitting there reading something to you, some stories or whatever. But that's ended up where I ended up with here. So I named this thing, You Don't Always Get What You Want. It's about you guys not getting that. So I apologize for that. And you'll see some parallels between Liam's and my lives, along with the pictures. This is probably the only one to repeat pictures, but I thank you very much for having me here. And I just want to tell you a story. It's a couple stories, and they sort of intertwine, so bear with me here and we'll get through it here. So, March 31st, 33 years ago tomorrow, my life and many others' lives changed forever. Homer Rocks, a slide path of approximately 800 vertical feet that had been shot with artillery that morning, pulled out about 5 feet deep on an interface of the melt and freeze spring pack and the new snow. It took the entire slope's worth of new snow, came across the base area of Alpine Meadows, destroying the building and covering the bull whale for the main summit lift. The building that covered the main summit lift. It also threw snow across the deck of the main lodge and through its doors, while adjacent paths off the buttress and the pond slopes covered large portions of the parking lots. It was 9 years earlier that I left Hawaii for the mainland. I'd lived there throughout my teens, and with the exception of when I went to college in Southern California, I spent most of my life on the beaches of the North Shore of Oahu. When I arrived in California, my cousin took me skiing a couple times, and the following fall, I was unable to get into a couple courses at a local school, so I decided to learn how to ski and get a job at a ski area. At Alpine Meadows, the Summit Lift building also was the locker room and the offices for several departments, including ski school, lift operations, and ski patrol. The air blast and snow, along with 200-plus-year-old trees, totally demolished the building. There were 7 employees in it when the slide hit, including my boss, the mountain manager, Bernie Kingery. There were other employees around the area, but the majority of them, mostly patrollers, had gone out to control the Alpine Meadows access road. There were also non-employees in the parking lots. When it was all said and done, 11 people were involved with the slide, 3 of whom were thrown from the Summit Terminal building and were either totally or partially buried, but quickly recovered with little to no injuries, leaving 8 unaccounted for. My first job in the ski area was in a hotel. I was a porter. I quickly moved to the maintenance department to get a cooler job driving a snowcat. After a few weeks, I got a roommate who was a ski patroller, and he changed my life forever, inspiring me with love for skiing and a love for patrolling. On the 31st, I was on top of the mountain when the slide occurred. I'd been there from early on during the storm, about 2.5 days. We were there, as was done for most large storms, to get out, do control work so snowcats could access the top of the mountain and make sure the lift was clear to run. Shortly after the slide occurred, we received some frantic calls from the base area. Then all communications through phones shut down. When we finally put together what may have happened, I had a concern that several patrollers were in the building when it occurred and thought they may too be victims. These were not only co-workers, but best friends and mentors. Fortunately, the majority of the patrollers were on the road. We contacted them, and they returned and started the search process. That was a picture looking at the lodge there. That's the debris that's on the lodge. We're looking through the Summit building shortly after the slide occurred. And this is the parking lot debris that we had to go probe to find people here. You know, I've always thought I've been lucky. I certainly was in the early days working at ski areas. I was lucky with the people I met. I was lucky with some of the decisions I made. Definitely lucky with the outcome of those decisions, and lucky with the jobs I took. I was also lucky with the teachers I had. My roommate Doug turned out to be a good friend, a good teacher, and then a good mentor. Another teacher turned mentor, Norm. He was with Monty Atwater in Squaw during the avalanche hunter days, and he lived down the road. It was a great sounding board for many years in all aspects of avalanche work. After a couple years of learning how to ski, and a couple years of patrolling a smaller area of Sugar Bowl, I got a job at Alpine Meadows on the patrol, one of the most recorded avalanches annually in the U.S. back then. There I met Tom, another friend, teacher, turned mentor. I was really lucky to meet Doug Gretschman, Norm Wilson, and Tom Kimber. You know, the rescue crews left late that night because of exhaustion and building avalanche hazard. The next morning, ironically, Bluebird, being up on top, I walked out to the end of the point, and it appeared that every slide path that could have slid had. And the debris across the base area was huge. The large avalanche rescue cache that was stored in the summit bottom terminal building was strewn across the entire base area, along with walls, lockers, clothes, and anything else that might be in an office or a locker room. Fortunately, we had an additional 100 probes stored at the top of the lift, and by mid-morning a helicopter showed up. We loaded the probes, flew down, and joined the rescue efforts. 3 bodies had already been found in the parking lot, including a little girl and her father. Another victim, Jake, a friend and trail crew member, was found not too far from the snowmobile. As we started digging through the building, we were looking for other victims. By the end of the day, we found 2 more bodies, one in the doorway of the lift ops office and the other under one of the large walls. This told us at least one, it turned out 2 people, had been blown out through the windows by the air blast before the walls came down. My first years patrolling, I tried to be a sponge, learning what I could from mentors and senior patrollers' experiences, from classes and books, lots of books. I learned from my experiences. My first full year patrolling, my partner and I, Jim, got caught in 4 slides. Can you say rookie moves? Yeah. Most memorable was the one we're standing in a bomb hole together. The shot goes off about 100 feet away, and we're both going down on a 2.5-foot hard slab. I grabbed Jim's collar and start sidestepping up the slab, and we both fall off the top of it as we go across the staunch wall. Lots of hairy times back then, like a lot of inexperienced Aggie workers have. I was lucky there wasn't any fatal mistakes that I made or my comrades had made, but that changed. I really don't have a creepier memory in my life than the one on April 1st, 1982, when I was alone in the first aid room that was attached to the main lodge. No power, no lights, and the snow had avalanched into the doors. I was arranging the frozen bodies that were stored in there, making room for a couple more. Shortly after that, we left the rescue site, and efforts due to building hazard from the storm that had settled back in. We wouldn't be able to return for a couple days, and in the meantime, we heli-bombed the shit out of the place. When we did return, it was 5 days after the slide, and we were still missing 2 people. A lift operator named Anna Conrad and our route manager, Bernie. Between the winters at Sugar Bowl and Alpine, I spent a summer in New Zealand working at a place called Porter Heights, filling me with lots of experiences and again introducing me to several great people. I actually met La Chapelle there for the first time when I was one of about 20 people who attended the first New Zealand National Avalanche Workshop. It was weird that over the next 10 years that many of the people I met down there would be affected catastrophically by avalanche incidents. There was me in the 82 slide. My roommate down in Queenstown, Tom Snyder, would be killed while leading a control route in Highlands Bowl in 84. Josh Lang, she was a fellow patrol reporter, was involved in a slide in Canada guiding for CMH in 91. She survived, but her 9 guests didn't. And then Dave McNulty. He ran our small patrol at Porter's, and he also died in '87 in an avalanche while heli-guiding down in New Zealand. My days of not seeing people pay the ultimate price for not making the right decisions were way behind me. At Alpine, when we returned to the site, I think it was on Sunday, it was with body recovery in mind. Most of us had attended Jake's funeral, the trail crew members, his service the day before. The process of the rescue was unlike anything we'd ever trained for. The basic probe line method was problematic, and dogs, one of whom had been buried in the building for the first day and night, had problems because of all the debris. So we would probe, and a snowcat would come in, then we'd use chainsaws to cut the walls apart into manageable pieces, and then we'd probe again. It took hours and hours. It seemed even longer. I'm not sure if it was Lanny or Bernard who saw it first, but under a pile of lockers and snow, they saw a hand move. It was Anna, and she had lived 5 days eating snow as we extricated her and got her into a helicopter. All 100+ rescuers stopped, and when it got airborne, they let out a great cheer. It was a true miracle during what had been 5 tormenting days. I remember Kimbrough yelling out, "Now let's find Bernie." And we did. It took a few more hours, and he was in a lot worse shape. He was in a tree well and had flown over 75 to 100 feet from the building, and he obviously struck the tree with a high rate of speed, but the search was over. We became pretty gun-shy at Alpine after the spring of '82. We used more explosives, performed rescue practices frequently, and had an incredible camaraderie amongst the patrollers. For me, I was trying to learn as much as possible, attending classes, the ISSWs, the local workshops. In the meantime, litigation continued for years over the slide, dividing the experts here in the country. I got to meet some very knowledgeable people. Chris Stetham was there. I got to spend time with Liam then. I also got to spend lots of time with Norm Wilson, who we've become very tight friends, and most notably Andre Roque from Switzerland, who won the jury over and probably was a key reason that we even prevailed in the litigation. You know, this is an experience that I remember back on frequently, and a defining moment in decisions I would make for the rest of my career. I left Alpine Meadows 13 years later to work as a patrol director in Washington. And that's where I sold out to big time management and became an ops director, and that's what I continue to do today. So I put together a few questions. This is Bernie Kingery. He passed away that day. I put together some thoughts, and no expectation that there's big answers out there, but I'm sure these are the things we ask everybody. But you know, what could we have done differently? You know, we shot the thing in the morning. Should we have shot it in the afternoon? Lots of things. Hindsight's pretty good in these kind of things, so it's tough to say we could have changed anything. I mean, what do you learn from some type of experience like this? I think, you know, how do you prepare for the unfathomable? I think what you want to do is go out and train on everything that you can, and hopefully when something comes along that you're not prepared for, at least you've got some idea of how you might react. You know, how did we prevail through the litigation? Well, I would tell you that at the time, Alpine Meadows probably had one of the leading control programs, or I wouldn't say leading, but it was definitely meeting or exceeding the industry standards at the time. And I think the juries saw that and appreciated that. And then we had some great expert witnesses who were able to tell the story. And then a big one was, how does this affect your staff? You know, myself, maybe some of you know Larry Haywood, who's a good friend of mine. We both sort of went out from that and tried to achieve more, learn more, share more, and be involved with the avalanche industry. There was other people there. My patrol director at the time, maybe the forecaster there. Both of them sort of went in the opposite direction, sort of got out of the business, and I would say it was close to seeing a post-traumatic stress syndrome occur with people that were very close to you at the time. It was tough. You know, when Scotty did this, he talked to us about, you know, what have we learned through our career and stuff, and I threw some things in here, and I think you'll see that they're very parallel to what Liam was saying as well. That, you know, I mean, it's really, really important. You guys got to work on this to be lucky. You know, it's one thing to make mistakes, but it's another thing if you don't learn from them. So it's important to always try and learn, take away as much as you can from those mistakes. You know, try not to be full of yourself, cocky guy, being the coolest dude out there because you're a ski patroller throwing bombs. You want to be professional, keep your head in the game. You know, be a good listener. You know, there's a lot of people out there that know a lot more than all of us, and you just need to listen to find out what it is, and you need to want to respect that experience. Try and find great people that you can achieve to learn from and pick up some of their great traits. You know, work it out with everybody, be a good team player. Oh yeah, you want to have fun. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but you want to be lucky. You got to be. The other thing Scotty mentioned was he wanted us to go back and talk to our younger self, and he didn't really give us any guidelines on how long we would be there to talk to him or any cool things, and I didn't think you guys want to hear about relationship issues I've had or anything, so I thought I would, I'm glad Liam didn't get into that either. So I thought I'd go through top 10 things I could share with you guys that I would tell young men. So, you know, you want to take lots of photos, because someday someone might ask you to do a presentation about your last 40 years, and you might not have enough pictures to do that. You know, don't waste a bunch of time trying to figure out what you're going to do when you're growing up, because you don't. I would probably try and tell Bill to, you know, look a little harder at some of that surface layer and stuff, the sweet spot or the variable, spatial variability, and then it'd be really cool if back in the early 70s I was showing guys how to do that. Have fun and take advantage of the loose rules everywhere, because it's changing every day and it's not going to be as much fun down the road, so do what you can now. Appreciate every day. You think about that every time you think of someone who might pass. I was told by a guy who's made it pretty big in the ski industry, you move to move sometimes. Unfortunately, that's my career right there, and couldn't keep a job. The number one quality, if you're out hiring people for a winter job, make sure they have a good summer one, because they can't afford to live off of their winter one. And then during tough times, keep your cool and some sense of humor. Appreciate the wealth of good friends, good mentors. Hold them in the highest regard and respect. And this is my number 10 right here. Bill, make sure you make buddies with this guy. Thank you very much.